Okay, welcome everyone. Dr. Ginny is our presenter tonight. She is a referee and a referee mentor. Topic is fourth official, assistant referee number 1, management of the technical area.
Thanks so much, Miss Jenny. I appreciate that warm welcome. And I want to make sure that we get straight to it because we only have about 45 minutes. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And so for those of you who are joining us today, thank you for deciding to spend that valuable time of yours with us. It always is humbling for me to share what I know with others because I know it costs you something too, even if the event is free. So feel free to ask questions either via the chat. Jenny will be monitoring that. Or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a, a quick question, I'm open to that as well. Give me a moment or let Jenny know that you have a question, and I'll make sure to address it as efficiently as I can. Last but not least, grab a pen and paper in case you have some notes that you want to take down, or if you have questions that you don't want to forget to ask either during the presentation or towards the end. So with that said, let's get moving with fourth official AR1 management of the technical area. Oh, here we go. Let's try this. All righty. And so one of the things that I want to do is a slight paradigm shift in how we think about this topic and how we have this conversation, because you all already know that there's a lot of administrative pieces to being the fourth official or managing that technical area. But I want to shift the paradigm a little bit, and I want to make sure that we shift it to behavior because it does affect everything in the technical area and on the pitch. And I equate behavior in the technical area to affecting the game the way the moon affects the earth, right? The moon provides a kind of tug and pull with the earth. So there's some predictability, there's some stability, but there is a play with one another. They help keep each other in the same orbit. And so we're going to talk and build on that as we go through this presentation, really shifting the paradigm to understand the impact that the technical area does have on the integrity of the game and why it's so important for us to manage it. And so when I look at the fourth official or AR1, if we don't have the opportunity to have a fourth official, the reason that I look at them in a different way is because they really are unique, right? We operate when we are in the fourth referee position, the fourth official position, or AR1, like we're NASA. But we're looking to manage those threats in the technical area, potential threats in the technical area that might impact in a negative way the integrity of the game that's being played, whether it's the administrative pieces like substitutions, making sure that their equipment is right and ready to go, not coming on until they're beckoned by the ref, by the center, all those fantastic pieces that make the game go smoothly. But today, again, we're going to focus on redirecting irresponsible behavior by anyone in that technical area. Because for a lot of us referees, that is really what starts to create the chaos and then makes it difficult for us to manage those administrative pieces like substitutions and so on. So for more on those pieces of directing irresponsible behavior, I want you guys to move to Law 6.2 in your IFAP book. And if you don't have a book, there's an app. I encourage everyone to download it, but take a look and I will make references to different laws of the game as well throughout this presentation. So let's talk just a little bit about responsible behavior. And remember, you're going to hear me build on each of these pieces as we go throughout this webinar. And so it should be something that's a lot easier to follow as we start to have this conversation. So responsible behavior is something that we tend to be able to do when we're calm, when we're even, when we're not unsettled, right? And it requires a level of self-control, a level of discipline and foresight and self-awareness in order for us to be able to actually behave responsibly. Now, when our emotions start to get out of control or they start to run high, our ability to maintain that responsible behavior might slip away from us and it can get the best of us, which isn't fun for anybody, especially the people on the receiving end. But it's also not fun for us because no one really likes to lose control, even when we feel like we're justified in doing so. So with that said, you're probably wondering, who is this weird little lady talking to us? And my name is Dr. Jenny Cristerna. As Jenny shared with you, I'm a U.S. soccer referee and mentor. I am the former sports psychology manager for USA Taekwondo, and I served under Patrick Wentland. He is the Hall of Fame speed skater who also coached Apollo Ono. And he is my co-host of the Tell Me Why Sports podcast that we have for athletes, parents, and coaches. I'm also the founder and lead psychological surgeon over at International High Achievers, and I specialize in sports psychology, trauma, depression, anxiety, psychosomatic complaints, grief, chronic illness, power and control, and relationships. I was at the University of Chicago last century when I graduated, so we're going to leave it at that. And I served on the board of governors until I rolled off. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of insight into me. I referee MLS Next, some semi-professional games, some college, club, and high school as well. I think it's great. I have a lot of fun, and I meet wonderfully great people who are also referees. So today we're going to do a play on words here. We're going to talk about the things that we're going to consider. So basically what we're going to cover today. And the first thing that I want to make sure that we cover is why managing that technical area is so important, why it matters. And it really isn't what you think it is. And so that's the fun part of this presentation, at least I think. The second thing we will talk about are the behaviors that you're most likely to deal with and the emotions that fuel them. Managing the technical area is a lot different than people expect it to be. And so I want to give you all some tips and some tools to be able to do that more effectively, that fit your personality and that is more likely to give you the results that you're looking for. The third thing that we're going to talk about is how to effectively manage those behaviors using your most important asset. And everybody has it, and everybody can make it even better and refine it. So one of the main things that's important for you to remember is that when we're talking about game day and when games are being played, understand that games are truly dynamic learning environments where players and coaches get an opportunity to demonstrate and perform and entertain people, right? But they're also learning, and that pitch is the classroom. And so when they are actually playing the game, whatever position they're playing, they're actually being tested. They're trying out all of the things that they've learned, all of the things that they've refined, and they're displaying their current level of grit for everyone to see. They're truly opening themselves up to demonstrate their ability to be adaptive in that game, to be disciplined, maybe come out with a couple of cheeky moves from time to time, all during real game, live game plays and performances. So this is just as real for them as it is for anybody else who's watching that game. And so I want you all to keep that in mind because those dynamic learning environments will play a big role in how you start to learn how to manage that technical area, because you need to understand the kind of mentality that those players and coaches have so you can best intervene in a way that gives you the success that you're looking for. So the other thing that I want to talk about is the technical area. The technical area is where those players who are going to be substitutes, the coaches, and the doctor, the trainers, if they're over there as well, but mostly the players and the coaches, they're going to be actively observing that game. And that learning is going to be happening real time. The coaches are going to start to change some things, to make different requests of players, and you'll hear them, right? You'll hear the coaches talking to the players that are on the pitch. And those are the things that I want you to keep in mind. Remember, we're building on that because those substitutes, they're paying attention, because when it's time for them to enter that dynamic environment, when they replace a player, when they sub for a player, they're going in there trying to pick up where that player left off, but with an advantage, right? And that technical area, remember we talked about it's equivalent to the moon and how the moon affects the earth. Well, that technical area contributes to the stability of the game, believe it or not, right? That's the responsible behavior that they talk about in Law 1.9. So when that technical area, right, has an opportunity to either fall into chaos or create order, that is a real thing. And we can feel that in a very real way when that game is happening. So in the heat of a moment, whether the play starts to get increase in the pace, whether it starts to become more physical and more challenging, the question becomes, as you're the fourth or AR1, are the technical areas becoming organized where it's starting to tighten up, or is it beginning to devolve? Meaning, is it starting to fall apart, right? And you can tell because chaos is that feeling that you're going to start to get. And that feeling comes up when things are starting to fall apart. But when there's order, there's a feeling, right, that something is coming together, and there's more of a purposeful type of focus that that technical area and that coach has. And you can feel it. It's kind of an energetic pull in, whereas chaos is a force that explodes out. And so remember that when there are emotions and then you add pressure to that, individuals and human beings can become active volcanoes under that pressure, which now explains in part why those fouls that are committed in front of the benches are really important to manage, right? Because here we're talking about the technical area being the actual thermostat and not the thermometer. They can turn up the pressure or they can bring down the pressure, the chaos, all right, that the players on the pitch experience. So if we continue to build on this and we start to understand our audience, when we look at those players in the technical area, when we look at those coaches in the technical area, and then when we start to hear them, we're going to hear them quite differently. We're going to hear how hard they've trained and how much this means to them, this particular game, because they're invested. We're going to feel, right? We're going to get a sense whether they're internally doing it or externally showing it, how passionate they are. And it's all relative depending on the individual. And then we know that they're going to be pretty vulnerable, right? Some people may call it sensitive, but they're going to be vulnerable because everybody's going to be looking. All eyes are on them. And of course, they want to put their best foot forward. They want to present their best performance for not just the audience and their opponents, but for themselves. Because at the end of that game, let me be very clear, just like we do as referees, their question to themselves is, did they rise to meet the occasion? Did they let themselves down? Did they fall short? That is your audience. What you're in essence dealing with is a human being who has hopes and who has dreams, just like we do as referees. When we go out there, we've trained hard, right? If you're trying to get upgraded, you're doing the interval training, right? Or you're studying videos, or you're talking, to fellow refs, or you're reading the laws of the game. And you go out there and you want to make really good calls, so you're super focused and everybody's watching you, and that one call could or couldn't matter. We don't really know. And we beat ourselves up. Did I miss something? Was my positioning off? So they're just like us. Okay. So that is your audience. One of the things that I encourage people to also remember is I don't care if it's the top seed and the last seed. There's not one team that steps on that pitch who shows up for a game that's coming to lose. Yes, there's going to be a winner and a loser. Maybe a tie, but that's relative to if you're the underdog, right? They may know it's pretty unlikely that they will win, but they show up because they still want to try. And the reason for that is because upsets are every underdog's dream and every top seed's nightmare. And we see it happen. And the thrill that comes from that, the hope, the despair, the shock, the awe that comes from that is what the game is about. The underdog has absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain, and the top seed has a lot to lose and very little to gain. It's important that we remember this, because we don't want to go into a game thinking, doesn't matter, they don't care, right? They're not going to win. Every call that we make matters, just like managing those technical areas, because if they have nothing to lose, then it doesn't matter if they descend. It doesn't matter if they descend or devolve into chaos. It doesn't matter to them, but it matters to the opposing team, the opponent. It matters to us because of the integrity of the game. They still deserve a chance to try and to have a game that will allow them to perform at their best. So as we talk about this, we're going to get a clearer picture about the emotions and how big a role emotions play in this particular topic when we're talking about managing the technical area. Because see, players and coaches, whether they're on the pitch or in the technical area, can be overtaken by their emotions, and they begin to, like I said earlier, behave very irresponsibly. Their anger, their disappointment, their despair, their embarrassment, their frustration, all on display. And so our focus, right? Our focus is just to redirect that irresponsible behavior so chaos and disruption are minimized. We do not want them to negatively impact the integrity of that game. We want them to have a good chance of winning that game if that is what they want to do. We want to have everyone have that fair chance. And our tools to be able to do that is by asking them, by telling them, and then by cautioning them. And I know you guys have heard that, but it's just as true today as it was the first day you heard it, as it was the first day that soccer came up with those ways of managing games. So I'd like to shift another paradigm for you and say that whenever you see certain behaviors or distress, as I call it from a technical area, that is a subconscious or an unconscious request for support. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm presenting things this way, because I think it is best. My experience has been the more detached you are from the irresponsible behavior in the technical area, the more objective you will be and the more effective you will be in managing any requests that you make of that technical area. And there are several cues that players and coaches will give you every time they're beginning to express or experience some kind of distress in a game. And you can look under Law 12.3 under team officials, and it's nicely layered, right? With asks and tells and warnings or cautions, and it's nicely laid out for you. So I do encourage you to read them. But with that said, there are ways that you'll know that they're, experiencing distress during that game. But what's important is to note that their distress has very little, if anything, to actually do with the referees. I get it. You might have missed a call. They think it's a foul. They don't think it's a foul. They think it should be a card. They think it shouldn't be a card, whatever. Very little has anything to do with you as a referee. It's usually tied to a previous experience that they've had or the meaning that they've given either this game, either that play. And it often falls along lines of either I failed to do something or I made a mistake at doing something. And so as you start to look at that, you go, okay, if the distress doesn't have very much to do with me, I might be triggering the distress for sure. I get it, right? Somebody's going to be upset maybe, but it doesn't have much to do with me. If it doesn't have much to do with me per se as an individual person, then let me manage those initial smaller pains a little more quickly. Because if we don't, the cumulative distress can trigger bigger things, bigger outbursts, bigger eruptions. And so if you are a fourth official, this is where you shine. This is where you really matter. If you're AR1 and you're doing double duty, right, you're managing the line, right, you're keeping up with the second to last offender, you might not be able to get to the other side of the 50 and hear it close to that and hear anything that they're saying. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of certain things. You just have the one bench that you can hear. And there's a lot that can go on there too. So we want to address as much as we can. We do not want to have two technical areas devolving. We must have at least one. So if you're AR1, managing that particular technical area is your primary. You'll get to the second one once you get down there as best you can. And of course, you have the center who can help you out as well. Now, your role isn't, when we're managing these technical areas, to make the pain or the distress disappear, but just to simply contain it and redirect it so it doesn't disrupt that game. That is really what our focus is. And we're lucky a lot of times, especially if we don't have a fourth official, and sometimes when we do, that there's someone within the team that will help redirect the person who's having a tough time, right? Who's requesting support. That support doesn't always have to come from us, which is the nice thing. And so there are cues that support may be needed. Again, Law 12.3 and under team officials. And those usually tend to be when they leave the technical area, they're not being disrespectful. They're not being confrontational. They might be going up screaming because if they walked an extra 1.5 feet, they think that the player can hear them more clearly. Who knows? But we know that something is starting to happen. They're starting to get a little antsy. And so they're going to be leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back. You're going to be uncooperative with request, right? You're going to say, hey, coach, can you step back into your technical? Well, I'm just right here, right? So they might give you a little snarky or flippant response, or their dissent level may be there, right? It might be low, but it's present, okay? When you start seeing, in my mind, these main 4 ones, the laws of the game have a number of them listed. These are the main 4 behaviors that I notice are solid indicators that they might be in need of some support soon, right? Increase your awareness, increase your presence, and increase your eye contact. And what I simply mean by that is be mindful. Okay, something's happening over here. Something's happening over here. And sometimes you might just walk a little closer. We don't go looking for trouble. We don't go speaking to trouble, but we just want to be available because we know it might be coming. And if they look over, we just want to look at them. We don't want to glare, right? We don't want to give them the evil eye. We just want to make eye contact so they know that we are aware and that we're watching and that we're available if they need additional support. And I do tell people it's not personal unless you make it. And that is always hard when we're dealing with personalities, right? Especially when they make it personal. Say they dissent and it's public, it's personal, it's provocative. That's really hard. But this is why I started the webinar by saying, hey, we're detaching. And in a few moments, when we talk about the things that you can actually say, it'll start to come together even more and make sense, right? So let's go back to this. It's not personal, right? Coaches and players are going to do what all humans do. And that is to see how far they can go with you, because each person is different. Each person has a line that's drawn in the sand in different places. Some people have the line all the way out here. Some people have the line really, really tight. And they want to see where that boundary is with you. And so a lot of times you will see that they'll say something and they'll just look to see how you're going to respond to what they've said to you or what they've said out loud or what they've said about the sitter or about the call. They just want to see. And that's going to be up to you. They're going to try to observe, how are they going to react to what I do now? My physical behavior, what do I do with my body? Do I leave the technical area? Do I stay there even if they ask me to come back? And then they're also going to observe, how did you handle someone who did something that might have been questionable, that might have been irresponsible? How did you handle that person? Right? If they thought, well, doesn't seem very strong, they might push it and do it themselves. But if you're like, that they were pretty firm in that, then what you'll see is them pull back and they won't engage in that behavior because they're seeing, right? They're just trying to find where they can and can't go, what they can and can't do. That's what every human being does. From the time that we're 2 and our parents say, no, stop, and you go, stop what? Stop doing this? You're like, yeah, stop doing that, right? We all need to know where the boundaries are because that's what makes us feel safe. In large part, now we can trust the official because we know what they're going to do, and predictability, the moon and the earth, we like it. We may not like it, but we like it. We like to know that we'll be safe. Okay. We like to know what's going to happen. And so as we do that, and as they're trying to feel out what these boundaries are and what they look like, what you'll notice is that, yeah, they left the technical area, right? In the previous slide, they might leave and come back, leave and come back. Well, every behavior does not require a response or a card, right? Part of what we do that makes us credible is we transcend our ego, right? We leave our self-importance at the door. We leave who we thought we were, right? When I get on the pitch, I'm not Dr. Jenny Christern, I'm Jenny. I'm the 4th official, I'm AR1. I have the whistle, that's it. I'm a referee, just like the rest of my team. We have a job, we have a role, we have a focus. So we leave those things behind and we focus on what's good for the game. Again, detached, understanding they're humans, we're human. It's not about us. They're having their own day, good or bad. And the same goes for players and coaches. And they have a tougher go because remember, the beginning of the webinar, we talked about, hey, they're on display. They're performing. They're taking these huge, tests, if you will, for some of them, but they're in these dynamic learning environments. Right? If they lose, oh man, if they win, oh man, has nothing to do with us. And this is where I say, introduce to you your most valuable asset, and that is your personality. And everybody has one, I promise you. So let's talk about what a personality is. A personality is simply a combination of these wonderfully raw and uniquely yours characteristics and qualities that make you you, right? Everybody, even if 2 people are nice, they're 2 different kinds of nice, right? Even if they're kind of cranky and a curmudgeon, right? One is maybe a teddy bear, and the other may be, just really mean and short to the point. They don't talk to anybody. They never smile. That is your personality. But it's important for us to understand and know and own what our personalities are. And so it's the qualities and the characteristics that make us uniquely us. And so how do we use our personality to our advantage? Well, basically we take the best parts of us that make us engaging or make people respond to us seriously, right? And we use that to diffuse situations, right? If it's a tense situation, we want to bring that down. Sometimes we smile, and sometimes we get really firm, right? We have a look, we have a tone, no more, right? And we pull back. And then when they start to soften, we might go, okay, now, right? And so our personality is fluid. Our core of who we are is the same, but our personality is fluid, and how we use it depends on the situation. Now, that doesn't mean that we say, oh, that's just who they are, and we dismiss it or make light of what they've done or minimize the problem that they're creating, right? It just simply means that we're managing the game as best we can using us, using our ability to show up and change the direction of someone, change the direction of their behavior, right? So we don't want to issue a yellow or red card unless we have to. So we try to persuade them to, hey, knock it off. That's enough, right? We try to do that before we get to a card, before we get to booking them. And so we might use examples like smiling, being reasonable, being objective and patient, validating their experiences, short and powerful conversations that are personal, right? If you've refereed a team several times, hey, how's your mom? How's your dad? How's your kids? Oh, that's nice. Right? And we say it with a smile. Well, good luck and enjoy your game. That's my signature, right? Whenever I check them in, good luck and enjoy your game, gentlemen, ladies, sir, ma'am. If you need anything, let me know. Has nothing to do with me. This is their game. I'm just here roughing it. That is how I use my personality. I've worked with refs I thought were fabulous. And I still think, I just go, how do they do that? They're very stern. They're very stoic. They have no emotion, and they manage a game flawlessly, never smiling, never asking about their day, but that's not their personality. It's up to you to identify what yours is and make the most out of it. So for some of you, you might want to develop your personality, or you're wondering, well, how can I develop my personality? And the first thing is to be honest with yourself about your style of engagement and your level of comfort with conflict, because conflict happens all the time. And again, it has nothing to do with you. So as we start to identify, okay, how do I engage people? Do I avoid? Right? Am I combative? Am I confrontational? Am I passive? Am I engaging? Am I present? Am I checked out? Right? These are things that you have to know about yourself. Then you want to identify those qualities that make you, a little more comfortable with dealing with conflict and managing other people's passions, right? Whatever that may be. So it might be something like, maybe you are detached, and what you do is you detach with a little more grace instead of going, hush, I don't want to hear anything else. Maybe what you'll say is, you know what, that's a lot for me to take in, but I'm going to keep an eye on that, make sure that doesn't come up again, right? So instead of going, right, we add grace to it, and we say it in a way where somebody can take it in and digest it. We practice being detached, but engaged during a conflict. And this, you don't have to wait for a game to do. You can do this with family. You can do this with friends. If you're driving home during rush hour, great time to practice that stuff. But it allows you to learn how to be detached while emotions are rising. That is your superpower. Can I be detached from someone else's emotion? If it is not my emotion, I do not have to step into it. If it is my emotion, how do I own it and then transcend it? Because I cannot let it control me, or else I will devolve in this situation. The situation will fall apart very quickly. And I do tell people, it's kind of like that song. I don't know, Jenny, can you help me out? Who made it? Know when to hold them, fold them, walk away and run.
Kenny Rogers.
There we go. There we go. Right. So if you're the fourth official or AR1, you have to learn when to smile, when to hold a neutral face, and when to show disapproval. And being able to move in between these spaces gracefully, right, with more ease than the average person, helps you quite a bit, because that level of fluidity, allows people to go, they were mad at me, but I think we're good now, right? And it allows people to move on. It allows you to move on. Now, becoming more comfortable with who you are while becoming more adaptive and agile in your personality is something that will help you in every area of your life. It'll help you develop more interpersonal skills, more connected relationships, and will also help you to build a reputation of being a reasonable and likable person. And we want to build on that. And we do want to be reasonable. And it does allow you to expand the way you think about people and the way you engage people. So now we're getting to the good stuff. All right. So the good stuff, the last 10 minutes of this is managing behavior and emotions in the technical area. Now that you have some history, now that you have a backstory on how our mind and our hearts work, especially when we're passionate about something like soccer or any sport for that matter, now that I'm thinking about it, what we want to do is take that knowledge, that information, and now we can apply behavior modification. Now we can talk about what you can do. And the reason that I took the scenic route with this particular webinar is because I've seen people apply behavior management and techniques, and they don't have context, and it blows up in their face. I'm not saying that this will not blow up in your face, but I'm saying you have information that you can that you can use to make educated decisions on when and where, and at least you have some points of reference. So let's get to it. So I've come up with this formula. It's called ask, tell, caution, right? This is the ask, tell, caution formula. And there are 3 things in the ask, 1 thing in the tell, 1 thing in the caution. And so this is my formula for my ears that I've trained myself on for soccer that may help you. So for the first 3 under ask, if they're loud, not yelling, just loud, their voice is just raised, and there's frustration, right? Then that's a cue that they might need some support. So we're going to keep an ear out, right? We're going to listen for that. Now, if that loudness turns into yelling, you add the frustration, and now there is a question, right? Oh my God, how was that a foul? That's a request for support. Sir, ma'am, coach, I'm going to need you to calm down. What's the challenge? What's going on? Right? Well, that. How was that not a foul? I can ask at the half, but yeah, I don't know the angle that they had. From the angle that I had, didn't look like a foul, but I can definitely ask, right? That's their request for support. And I actually have some dialogue, sentence stems for you to look at or to take with you. So yelling plus frustration, and there's a question in that, that's a request for support. If they're yelling and there's frustration and there's a question and there's confusion, that is help me help myself. That is a cry for help. So it might sound something like, oh my God, how is that a foul? That's not even a thing. That is, come and help me. I'm losing it. I can't pull myself back in from it, right? That is when we go, hey, what's going on? Hey, coach. And at that point, if you're the 4th official, you have a little more time because they're frustrated. Anything with frustration and they just want to get it off their chest, that's a wonderful time for them to just vent, because they're not trying to have the call changed or anything. They just want to get out their feelings and their thoughts about why they disagreed with the call. And they're just going to talk to you about it, and it'll take all of maybe 6 to 8 seconds. And they don't even care what you have to say. And all you're going to probably say at the end of it is, I hear you. You know what? I'll definitely, keep an eye out for that. Now I'll see if the center had anything to say about that. And most of the time they go, just forget it. Or they go, oh yes, because that's what I want. Right? Because they have usually called you over to ask for that in particular. The tell is something a little different, right? It moves from being a question that's confusing to now they're yelling, they're frustrated, and they're telling you something. That is not a foul, right? Now, if they combine that with an ask, then you're going to have a different issue. But if they go, that's not a foul, what are you doing? Right? One shaky. So you might walk over and say, Coach, I hear you. I can tell you're frustrated. And I understand. I get it. We can't have you yelling that out to our center. Right? It devolves the game. Sends it into chaos. Tell me what's going on. Right? If you're AR1, you're going to do your best. Right? If you're in front of the bench that's doing it, you're going to, hey, coach, walk with me. And you're going to walk and talk with that coach. Right? Hopefully at, a natural, stoppage of play, you can have a short conversation with him or her, but same thing. Now for the caution, what you're going to hear is it's a yelling, there's a frustration, and there's a statement, and that statement is going to be towards the official. That statement is going to be the dissent, right? But say if, they're like, oh, going out and of the penalty of the technical area, excuse me, and they're going up to the line and you're like, hey coach, step back, hey coach, step back, hey, I need you to back into your pin. No, or they just completely dismiss you and they don't pay any attention to you at all. That is when it's time for a card. Coach, right? Because the tell is, I've asked you to step back. The next time you do that, the next time I come over, that's going to be a caution. And so that becomes the caution, right? You've asked them, you've told them, and now you have to caution them. Are there any questions? Are we good, Jenny? I don't know if someone had something in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, there was coach's role is not foul selection. They are there to coach.
That's right. That's right. So when they start talking about that's a foul, that's not a foul. This is why that fourth official or AR1 goes over and says, Coach, I hear you. I hear you. You're frustrated. And we're going to have some sentence stems that talk about that. But that is absolutely right. That is not their call. That is not their call. Absolutely spot on.
And then there was one question. Have you experienced a game where a fight has broken out? And how do you handle that situation? If you haven't been involved, what are the roles and responsibilities, whether combatants have been from the technical area or on the field?
Sure. So that's called a mass confrontation, and that's usually discussed in the pregame with your other refs. So the center will tell you how they want their mass cons handled if they have one. But this is why the fourth is so important, because remember that volcano we talked about at the beginning of this webinar with the emotions? This is why we are focusing on the behavior today. Because if you can manage that, if you can manage that in the technical area, you won't have to worry so much about it. So usually what will happen is, for example, I did have one, but it was a smaller one. We didn't have a fourth official. My side, where I was AR1, did not engage. The other side, only one engaged, right? And the coach brought that person back. And what the center wanted was me to handle the benches, which is where I went to the 50, managed both benches. He went to this side, I'm pointing to this side of the field. And so we did a triangle, right? There was one situation where our plan when we had four referees was the fourth official handled the one side of the benches. I handled the benches that I was in front of. And then AR2 in the center, they formed the triangle and then they took numbers. So when that happens, the mass con, you take the numbers of the people who came in off the benches, and that is what AR1 and the fourth official does, right? And sometimes if it happens quite quickly, it'll be tough, but you do the best you can. And then you report those in the special report after the game is done. But those people who left, they will be carded accordingly. If they left and entered the field, that's a yellow without permission. If they left and committed some violent conduct, that of course is going to be a red card. It doesn't take away from the players, the number of players that get to play on the field. However, they do need to leave the area sight and sound. So it depends on how that all goes down. Did I answer that question for you? Did I get that for you?
Yes, I think that was good.
Okay, fantastic. Anything else, Jenny?
No.
Okay, fantastic. Those were two wonderful questions. Thank you for asking them. And so now we're getting into the good stuff. 2 ways to effectively manage behavior. I call it the mover and the over. So these are going to be the things that you can do. And if some of you have to jump off, I completely get it. The mover is when you have a fourth official for the most part. And the coach needs to vent. And this is where you're going to mirror, basically meaning repeat what you heard them say. You're going to be objective and stay out of their emotion. You're going to stay in your own space. You're going to validate their experience. You're going to trust that this is what they experience. Who are we to argue with that? And then you're going to empathize by imagining how they might be feeling. And then you're going to request the behavior to change. Right. And so that might sound like this. Here's the fourth. Hey, coach, let me make sure I understand you. They fouled your player and the center didn't call it. Did I get it? Yes, right there in front of everybody. A blind bat flew by and called it. I get it. You want the fouls to be called. I imagine that's frustrating because you want a fair game. Of course. I'm unsure what the center saw, but more important is making sure you keep yourself in the game for your team. The call was made. Take a deep breath, reset, so you can return to coaching your team. They need you, okay? That's one way of managing behavior if you're fourth and you have time and they are starting to get to the end of the ask, right? And they're calling for help. That's that SOS call, right? Now, if you don't have enough time and say you're AR1, and I'm usually AR1 for most of my 3-man games for this particular reason, you drop the mirroring and you just simply, if it's escalating, you're pressed for time, whatever, and you just go over, right? OVER, you take the M, you just go over the issue. This is going to be a lot more direct and it's going to be very detached. It's pretty quick. And so you're going to objectively validate their experience and empathize with how they might be feeling. Then you're going to make your request for them to change their behavior. We're still going to ask. There's never a reason to be rude. All that does is fuel the fire, and now you've stepped into their emotion. There's never a reason to be rude. So it might sound like this. I get it. You want the fouls to be called. I imagine that's frustrating because you want a fair game. Yes, of course. I'm unsure what the center saw, but more important is just making sure you keep yourself in this game for your team. The call was made. Take a breath, reset, so you can return to coaching your team. That was all of 4 seconds, maybe. Right? And that's something that we aspire to get to because we have to be able to think on our feet. So if you're just starting to do this or learning how to do this, it requires practice, which is why I say practice it at home, at work, with your friends, family, turn it into a party game. I don't know. But here are some things that, because we're recording this, these are some of the sentence stems for each situation: the ask, the tell, and the card. So the ask, you're going to see that I've given you a number of sentence stems that you can play with, make it your own, right? So the parts that are bold, those are the parts that you're going to emphasize. Hey, coach, right? Because you got to grab their attention. Hey, coach, can you do your players a favor? Insert your instruction. Thanks, I appreciate you. Or it. I always say I appreciate you. I appreciate it. Right, but we want to frame things in a way that benefits them. Coach, walk with me. I do this one a lot when I'm AR1 and it's right on my side. Walk with me. And this is when I talk and give the instructions and why I'm asking them to do what I'm asking them to do. Because I'm always going to ask, whether you do it or not is up to you. Coach, please step back into your technical area. Thanks, I appreciate you. I appreciate it. Coach, I understand and I love that passion. Let's bring it down so you're not misunderstood. Thanks so much. I appreciate you. Appreciate it. Hey, coach, step back so I or AR1 can make the right call. Thanks. I appreciate it. Hey, coach, please step back into your technical area so we don't run into each other. Thank you. Right? And when the coach is looking at you, because a lot of times if we're paying attention, we'll see that they're trying to get our attention and they'll be staring at us. What's up, coach? And as they're talking, I see, right? If you can't mirror because they're just talking, they just want to vent. Oh, right. Because you're hearing and they need to know that you're getting them. Okay. Now, when we're doing the tell, hey, coach, you're making it challenging to call and manage this game. Please step back in the technical area so we don't have to book you. This is my tell. Thanks so much. Hey, coach, help us keep you from getting booked. I need you to stop complaining about the calls. Stop being so public in your complaints. Please work with me here. This is my tell for you. Thank you. look, coach, I'm trying to help you manage your behavior. The next time I have to come over here to talk to you about this, it's because you're getting booked. I'd appreciate it if you work with me on this, okay? And a lot of times at the tell, you can wait for an affirmation or a rebuff. Either they're going to go, I know. Okay, I got it. Or they're going to go, whatever, right? If they agree with you, thank you. If they don't, say, okay, you gave them that, that's the tell. You walk away. Remember, we don't have to go looking for it, but you have to keep your word and you got to book it the next time. That is the challenge between saying, I'm going to have to book you. But in the beginning, sometimes we need that because we have to remind ourselves we have to follow through with our word. We have to be consistent. Or the tell, if they're doing something and it goes past an ask, hey, coach, none of that. And it squashes, and then you walk away. Now, when it gets to the caution, this is after you maybe done a couple of asks, and then you said, this is my tell. You call over the referee. You can tap your shirt pocket or your short pocket, explain the card to the center. When they come over, the center is going to display that card to the recipient with the name of the infraction. And it's going to go, coach, and then it's going to be a short explanation for the card, and you're going to walk away. A lot of times when you give a card for dissent, the coach is like, for what? And you go, dissent. That was your answer. You don't have to like the answer, right? And I don't necessarily say that last piece, but when we card someone and they ask us what it's for and we tell them, that is the answer. You do not have to go into a long, elaborate explanation. That is the answer. Dissent, sir. Dissent, ma'am. Right. Coach, here's your card for persistent infringement. And you walk away. They're adults. They know what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do. If they make the choice again, that's the second yellow, followed by a red, and then they're off. It doesn't matter if they don't have an assistant and the game is done. That is their problem. You have asked them, you have told them, and then you've cautioned them. With that said, I want to say thank you. I know we're about 8 minutes over. If you all are interested in a good sport podcast for athletes, coaches, parents, and referees, you can go to tellmewhysports.podbean.com, and you can download one there. It's a wonderful podcast, and it's not just because I'm in it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ginny. Thank you.